You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Tanya Lowe.
Hello, you're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Using my results driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences, I help organizations develop their best kept secret, their human capital. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development, and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. Our guest today is Selu Gupta. Selu is a dynamic engineering manager at Tektronix, a global leader in test and measurement solutions. Selu brings a unique blend of technical acumen and leadership prowess to her role. Known for her exceptional communication skills, Selu excels at bridging gaps between various departments, ensuring seamless collaboration across engineering, marketing, and manufacturing teams. Her ability to translate complex technical concepts into actionable insights has been instrumental in driving product innovation at Tektronix. Selu's leadership style is characterized by her emphasis on team building and talent development. She fosters an environment of continuous learning and growth, empowering her team members to reach their full potential. Her approach has consistently resulted in high-performing teams that deliver cutting-edge solutions to complex engineering challenges. Throughout her career, Selu has demonstrated a knack for identifying emerging trends in hardware engineering and leveraging them to create innovative products that meet and exceed market demands. At Tektronix, Selu continues to drive technological advancements, leading her team in developing next-generation hardware solutions that shape the future of electronic test and measurement. Selu, welcome to RDO.
Thank you for the wonderful welcome. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to see you again. We were together in the spring, I think, and here we are, almost the fall.
The time is flying by. We met in April, and now it's almost the end of August. This is crazy.
What is happening? What is happening? Well, it's so good to be with you again, and we have a little more time to expand our conversation. So I'm going to jump right in. I love what you're doing in the tech industry as it relates to talent development and really developing people. So here's a question that just came to me from, going over your bio. Why is it important for you to create lifelong learning or learning opportunities for your teams for development?
I think I would say that a lot of it comes from just my upbringing. Both of my parents are professors or retired professors, and they sort of instilled that love of learning in me, which I have carried throughout my life. I love learning about new things, new technologies, new people, new places, and I think it has really added a lot of dimensions to my life and to my personality. And I want to sort of share that with my teams and encourage that in my teams. So I'm not saying that I would force it, like, oh, here's a book, you must read it. But, just encouraging the notion of taking time and space to learn something new or expand on something you know about and develop it further, because that's what our brains really crave. And especially in the tech industry, that just helps you grow in different ways. And that's how innovation happens. So that's really my purpose behind all of that.
I love it. And you, for me, you really nailed it with that's where innovation happens. If we're still using processes from 30 years ago and we're not reading a book or listening to a podcast or doing all those things to increase our knowledge, we're not going to be creative and innovative or even adaptive when it comes to growth. The world of work has changed. I keep saying is changing. It has changed.
It has changed.
And so I love that you're doing that with your teams. And I know that research shows that teams who, when you create a culture of learning, it's better for the team, the department, as well as the organization. So thanks for sharing that. So as the tech landscape is constantly evolving as well, and with it, the skills required for success are evolving and changing. How has the balance between hard skills and soft skills shifted in your experience?
Oh boy. So it's interesting because I think hard skills are still just as important. I mean, when you talk about the tech industry, for 20 years, I was a hardware design engineer. The technical details that I needed to know to do my job, I don't think that part of it has changed. Maybe how we receive the information or how basic we need to get in learning that and where we start and how we develop that technical detail, that has changed. I would agree, but I think we still need to know the foundations of technology before we can, evolve from it. Soft skill wise, however, I feel like there's sort of been a change, a transformation of why it's important. And I can speak from my own experience where, to be very honest, when I became an engineer, I was like, I'm going to be an engineer for the rest of my life. I've got great technical skills. I love designing stuff. Innovation is my future. And that's what I'm going to do, nothing else. And that I think was not probably the best assumption, but as things are, as the world and technology is changing, our companies are changing. I realized that there was opportunity to develop these soft skills and the importance of them. And I think a lot of it also had to do with mentors and managers who sort of spotlighted that for me. It's like, it's great that you can do all this technical stuff, but what about the other stuff? Can you bring a team together? Can you lead? Can you work with a diverse group of people? And, those things kind of got me into motion about thinking about these soft skills and how I'm going to develop them. And incidentally, as all of this, transformation was happening and these conversations were happening, I, along with a couple of my colleagues, kickstarted one of our employee resource groups, which was the first at the company, which is the Women in Technology group that we started. And it was, of course, a mission, right? We were on a mission. We wanted to change the landscape. We wanted to change thought processes, which we did. But the unexpected side effect of leading women in technology was my personal development of my soft skills, leadership skills, public speaking, getting different people with different opinions and thought processes together, being able to have that conversation, dealing with negative feedback, all of that, right? It came as part and parcel of, setting up this employee resource group. And it kind of pushed me beyond my comfort zone for that reason. And because of that, I think all these things that were sort of hidden or maybe suppressed or I didn't let emerge before because of my introvert nature, these things started to come out. And I realized I did have the capability to do that. And so I think these soft skills are, now that I'm, hindsight 2020, soft skills are probably the most important thing we need as engineers, as people in technology, to be able to do a better job of bringing our teams together, to work together, to collaborate together. And especially in the environments where we have some of our teams are not even, in the same city or even in the same country.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that communication, that alignment, and, bringing everybody on board, this is all through soft skills that we happen. So I feel like from that perspective, because of the changing landscape of how work is done, soft skills are, because of our geographies, our cultural backgrounds, and everything that's changed, soft skills play a bigger role in bringing teams together.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love everything about that story. You being introverted, I don't believe it, but I don't believe it at all. But I think there are many people, and I hear this a lot, Selu, I just want to do my work. I don't really want to deal with all the people-y stuff. But here's the thing, it's your soft skills that you had to tap into to really get the job that you have, because you have to show who you are. And for those that are listening, they're like, soft skills, hard skills. Hard skills are those technical skills that you have across any industry, whether it is technical, whether it's engineering, business, medical. There are a set of skills you have to do your job. But then the soft skills are those people skills, your listening ability, your ability to move a team, to galvanize people, to hear them, using your emotional intelligence. It's all of those things that companies really want. And it's not new. I think we're talking more about it now as workplaces are changing, as we have, we have up to 5 generations in any given workplace. I think it is we've lost it somewhere. And so it is important, because as we want to create these cost-effective teams that are doing creative and innovative things, they've got to be able to communicate. They've got to be able to talk together. They've got to be able to, we disagree, but how we move from that disagreement, right? So I love how you accidentally got into it. Through the ERG, and we love ERGs.
Yeah. And, I was able to apply a lot of those skills directly into technical development. I was the hardware lead for one of our oscilloscopes. And this was one of the first projects where a lot of the hardware development was happening at our headquarters in Portland, Oregon. Software was happening in India. Manufacturing was happening in China, which is not a very different story from a lot of technical companies, right? And but being the hardware project lead and trying to bring everybody together with different thoughts, different cultural backgrounds, different design backgrounds, to focus on a single project. I can't say that in the beginning it was easy because of all these things, but being thrust into the situation and pushing yourself through your comfort zone. This was, I think, one of the best experiences I had, to be able to see for myself how this, communication, listening, understanding, and bringing people's voices together, but also, making the right decision as a team, became even more important. So, it was, I think the stars aligned just perfectly.
Well, and it also shaped you as a leader. It also shaped you as a leader.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So in that same vein, you mentioned it got you out of your comfort zone. And I always tell people, we get in our comfort zone and we like to stay there, but the reality is the comfort zone isn't really comfortable anyway. So in that vein, for those who have primarily focused on their technical abilities, adapting can be challenging. I'm sure it was like, wait a minute, I don't know.
Mhm.
So can you share with us, how can or share with those listening, how can professionals and tech professionals who are more comfortable with their hard skills develop their soft skills effectively?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because I think, as we're all different, everybody has a different way of learning, a different way of trying things. But I think the two things that come with developing your soft skills is, first of all, believing in yourself and knowing that this is part of who you are and this is something you can do. Shutting out the external noises or feedback or self-doubts or the imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Shutting all of that out and knowing that you are capable, that you have leadership inside you that you can work on, develop on, and maybe it's an alternate career path that you never thought of, like I did. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I think is just being a little courageous. Being
Mm.
courageous and not fearful, and just saying, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. The worst thing that can happen is I don't achieve my own expectations, but doesn't mean that I've completely failed. And just being taking that courage with you and moving forward, and speaking up, pointing things out, taking wherever you are in a team meeting, in a hallway discussion, just speaking up for yourself or speaking up about your opinion on a technical project. Just start small and build up to where if you're in a project meeting with cross continental discussions happening, it'll give you the confidence and courage to speak up in those situations as well, and that develops into other opportunities, in my opinion. So yeah, I would say confidence and courage, those two things are essential in transitioning from a very
Broad,
siloed
narrow.
yes. Oh,
Because
I'm good.
when we focus only on our skill set, like
Mhm.
I am an engineer, I take things apart, I put things together,
Mhm.
I fix things. It's good, it's great, it's special,
Uh-huh.
but it's also very limiting. And so
Yeah.
as you were talking, I was kind of making a list and some of the things that I've shared with some of the CEOs that I've worked with,
Mhm.
active listening, practice
Oh, yeah.
active listening is so important. And you even mentioned it, speaking up,
Mhm.
getting involved in your company ERG or
Mhm.
starting one if you don't have one.
Exactly.
Um, attend, workshops and read books
Mhm.
but I think before all of that, you have to have a desire. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, in some workplaces, that desire to improve upon our soft skills comes from a problem.
Mhm.
Betty doesn't know how to talk to people. People are leaving Bob's team
Yeah.
because of
Mhm.
XYZ. And so it doesn't even have to get there. Read up on emotional intelligence,
Oh, yes.
role
Mhm.
play, seek out a mentor. And like you mentioned mentorship earlier,
Mhm.
seek out a mentor and say, I want to become a better, if you want to become a better leader for your team,
Mhm.
then we have to improve our soft skills. That's how I see
Oh.
it.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree 100%. It's not, I can't say that everybody's just born with it, but
No.
it can be developed and it can be learned. And it's just an internal effort that you would have to make to just go, okay, this is where I want to develop some more. I got the technical stuff down. I can develop, all kinds of products. I got this figured out, but what about this, right? And that I think definitely is key in this journey. And even just it helps you technically too, because if you've got an idea and you can communicate with your team a lot more effectively because you feel like confident in yourself and your thoughts, and you're able to articulate exactly what you're thinking and why you're thinking it, it only helps your technical uh, focus as well. So
Absolutely.
so I think it's all encompassing really. And yeah, I think we should be focusing more on those soft skills. And yeah, and I think I was reading the other day, on LinkedIn, how people put up quotes and that sort of thing. But getting along with everybody is probably an underappreciated skill set.
Yes.
You know, and it just made me think, like, yeah, that's right. Just being able to work with folks and get along with them and being able to communicate with them is really underappreciated because that's what our teams require these days. I mean, regardless if you're in a leadership position or not, it's just a very important thing. So.
Access thousands of audiobooks and podcasts anytime, anywhere. From mysteries to self-help, there's something for everyone. Listen during your commute, workout, or downtime. Start your free 30-day trial at www.audibletrial.com/rdo and get your first audiobook free. Now back to the show.
It's a superpower, right? I can get along with people who have a different thought process than I have, right? Or not just get along, I can work with people who think differently than I do and not take it personally. And we can come up with solutions that will be beneficial for everyone. And I do think that's a superpower. And since we're talking about superpowers, let's talk about one of yours.
Okay.
You have one of your superpowers is building cohesive teams. And so building a cohesive team is can sometimes create its unique challenges. What strategies do you use to foster effective team building in a highly technical environment?
I think for me, a lot of it has to do with getting to know people at a personal level. If there's somebody on my team that I'm going to be working with or is part of the project, then I would like to get to know them better. And I do that through one-on-one interactions, meetings. If I run into them in the hallway, now that we're back in the office, just catching up, right? And it's interesting how, I mean, this is all part of the soft skill conversation, but, making those connections with your team members is really just as important as talking about the project, in my opinion, because that allows people to come on board with where you're going as a leader. Because they understand you better. I mean, it's not just about understanding your team, but you need to put a little bit of yourself out there too to be able to create that, communication. And when people know you better and what you stand for or what your thought processes are outside of even the project, then that just sort of enables that team to kind of come together and understand what we're trying to do. And, creating that safe space and making everybody on the team realize, hey, it's okay to disagree. We'll figure this out. Let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it as a team. And there are no wrong answers. Let's just figure it out. And for me, those relationships that I am able to build have played a very important role in helping me, develop and lead cohesive teams across the country as well as across the world, just to be able to get what is needed to get that done. So
yeah. I think one of the things that I love that you said was about creating safe spaces where people understand. Well, one, taking the time to get to know people that are on your team, and sometimes that can be a challenge because people aren't really sure if they're coming from a toxic work environment, if they're not really sure about, is it okay for me to be vulnerable and talk to this person? So as a leader, yes, it's important to share a little bit of yourself and to get to know people. But also, as we're learning and talking about and understanding how each other thinks, which is diversity in thought, it creates a safe space. If I'm having this one-on-one with you and you're sharing and then I'm sharing, when we get in the big meeting, I'm not afraid to share because you've created that safe space. And I think that's really important in team building, where we're not going to always agree. We're not going to always come up with the same. We want to avoid groupthink at all costs, right?
Right.
Because that is not going to get us the innovation and the creativity that we're looking for.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to add here is, sort of the historical perception of what leaders should be, right? And what a leader looks like. And even if you throw it into an AI engine, they'll be like, "Oh, it's a male, in a suit with a tie." But that's not how the world is right now, right? And also, I think, especially I know I've struggled with this, and I've heard of other female leaders struggle with this as well, is that creating that change, right? This works for me because this is how I communicate, this is how I connect. But it doesn't make it wrong, it's just different. And different is not always, something that goes down easy, right? People need to adapt to it, accept it, and go, hey, this isn't so bad after all. Somebody else may do things differently, but if Selu's doing things this way, maybe it's not such a bad thing. So it's a different approach. Once again, it comes back to confidence and courage for me to just say, this is how I see myself being a leader, and this is how I perceive myself of being able to do the best job that I can. I'm going to continue being authentic. I'm going to continue doing what I do and how I do it, and not worry about, the white noise around me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. How does imposter syndrome show up in this transition, in this story? It's always rearing its ugly head. How does it show up when you're trying to go from developing the hard skills to the soft skills? Or how does it show up when you're trying to engage team members and build this cohesive team? And how do you as a leader move that get it out of the way, get it off the table for yourself and for your team members?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So imposter syndrome, I can say, is like my shadow. I mean, I think it's just around me, and it's easy to create the facade because I've had junior engineers who've just started, it's just starting their career. It's like, oh, it's amazing what you do, and you're so confident, and you can do this and talk to such and such and lead all these teams and everything. And inside, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how scared I am every time I do this. So I think it's just that I feel like that fear of oh, well, I'm not worthy, or I don't know how I got here, maybe I'm not qualified. What will happen when people find out that I'm just faking it till I make it, and what happens then? And I don't think that has ever left me. And a lot of it has to do with the tech industry. I've been the only female all through undergraduate, my graduate school, a lot of my projects, after starting my work as a design engineer. So there's a little bit of insecurity, I would say, or uncertainty that comes with that. And that's where, I feel like, when I talked about speaking up, and that's something I tell all of my team members, and especially intentionally any, female engineers that join my team, you've got to find a way to speak up. You've got to find a way to express who you are. And to me, that was my biggest counterattack to the imposter syndrome. And just practicing. I mean, if you are just confident in how you're talking, or you continue practicing, and whether it's in front of a mirror at home or just kind of going through things in your head, that enables a level of it enables you basically to move forward and not let imposter syndrome overpower. And that's kind of what I've done. And at some point I've been like, so what's the worst thing that can happen is that people are going to laugh at me or point out my mistake, but that's okay. That's okay, because,
We all
when
make
I was
mistakes.
exactly. And when I wasn't speaking up, nothing was happening. But maybe now, if I am speaking up and I do get a response, at least it's starting a conversation. And I had to be comfortable with that and being able to just kind of be in that landscape. But at the same time, I'm the first to admit, even as a manager, even with, experience in leading teams, imposter syndrome does kick in every once in a while where does everybody know that I don't know what I'm doing? There's always this fear. But then people, I think it's really great to have mentors.
Yes.
Sponsors, and actually, really great managers too, that really support you and sort of, catch you before you go too deep down that rabbit hole, right? And they push you back up to ground level, and they remind you, like, that you're here in this position because you have all these skills. We need you here because of all of this. And so that as well, I think, helps negate some of that imposter syndrome when you get that feedback, that positive feedback from people who are part of your, cheering crowd, if you want to say, right? So creating that that circle of people that believe in you, I think, is just as important for that imposter syndrome, negation. So
Yeah.
So I think I went through like a lot of things there. But
No. You mentioned being able to use your voice, and I think that is so important for women and for women leaders, finding your voice and using your voice. And along the way, the gremlin, you're going to have the gremlins jump in, you're going to have the imposter syndrome monkey jump in and try to tell you no one wants to hear you, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's so important to understand that you wouldn't be in the seat that you're in if you didn't know. No, none of us have all of the answers, but it's that reminder. And I love that you said, you have to have a cheerleading squad, someone to say, no, you deserve to be right here. So for folks who are listening, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard the term imposter syndrome, it dates back to 1978. Two clinical psychologists, Suzanne Imes and Pauline Rose Clance, coined the phrase imposter syndrome, and it typically shows up in high achieving women more so than men. And so they have feelings of internal feelings of inadequacy rather than objective evidence of inability. Overcoming imposter syndrome involves challenging our self-doubt, learning to accept compliments, focusing on your own authentic strengths and abilities. And so when those feelings of, oh, I just got lucky pop in, or I don't deserve to be here, or you're constantly worrying that I'm going to be found out and they're going to kick me out, they're going to escort me out, stop and take a breath. Call that mentor, call that ERG leader, and have someone talk you off the bridge because you're right where you're supposed to be, learning, leading, and guiding together. Yeah. So I want to throw that in because I know that was that's something that comes up often with high achieving leaders, CEOs, directors, VPs. It comes up, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, and that can have an effect on your team. And I think as a leader, as you talk about building your teams, when you can recognize, okay, this is something that, going back to to building those relationships.
Mhm.
This is something that I've struggled with.
Yeah.
So maybe you've struggled with it too,
Mhm.
but I'm here to guide you along the way,
Yeah. Right.
along your path. So,
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of where, this phase two of my career is moving forward is, being that person for somebody
mm,
else. Right. And
hmm
I think that is just as important, for those of us who do feel an imposter syndrome. I think it's important to be that person for somebody else to help them get over any doubts they may be having and being there for them. And it doesn't have to be a formal relationship where you meet every week for an hour and talk. It can be very casual. It's just a conversation in the hallway or an IM on Teams where you're communicating confidence and support for somebody else. And I think that is also just such a simple way to uh, you know moving pass it along and move it forward and uh, just kind of do our part to help.
Selu, that's what leadership is all about. It's about developing others, growing others, and standing in the gap for
Mhm,
others.
mhm,
So, how do we've talked about a lot. We've talked about a lot. How do you envision the future of tech recruitment changing to
mhm.
accommodate the need for both technical expertise and strong interpersonal skills?
Um, let's see. So, that's I think recruiting in general has changed significantly, compared to when I was looking for a job out of school and how things are now. I think I appreciate the focus on especially at our company and our bigger conglomerate that we're a part of, the focus on ensuring diversity,
Mhm.
because that is a very important part of success for our teams. We are such a global, I mean, company, and the more diversity we have on our teams, the better we are for it. And with diversity brings a different kind of soft skill with every new member that you bring onto the team. And so I think, from that perspective, how we're recruiting, how we're, you know, which schools we go to or how we bring more technical team members on, I think that has an impact in the long run as well. And taking new engineers from where they are and entering our workforce, and then taking them on this journey of where they're going to go next. I mean, we're starting at a diverse starting point already, and then we're going forward, and that just makes things, I think, I'm very optimistic. I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I'm always just a very optimistic person. So I just feel like, that's changing the landscape. That's changing how we do things. And it's changing the technical industry. And the more voices, the more thoughts, the more differences that we have in our how we design, how we develop, I think only makes everything better. And the more we can kind of make that happen, I think is better for everybody.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, saying the D word, right? Because it's so, people get so nervous when you say the D word.
Oh goodness, yeah.
But when we really are honest about what diversity is, it's
Hmm.
so much more than
Yeah.
gender and race. It's
Hmm.
skill set, it's
Yes.
ability versus ability, disability, it's thought process, it's whatever your intersections are, it's
Hmm.
all of that. And so if you've got 15 people sitting around the table, again, we want to avoid groupthink, but we
Hmm.
really want to tap into their diversity in thought, their diversity
Hmm.
in experience, their
Hmm.
diversity in mindset
Hmm.
to create something wonderful and amazing. And you cannot do that without the D word, which is diversity.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm a huge supporter of those initiatives. Of course, inclusion is a huge part of that because you
Yes.
can't just bring people onto a team and expect everything to magically just fit in place.
Mhm.
People need to feel like they belong, and that's the responsibility of our leaders to make sure that happens, to get to maximize that potential of everybody that's on your team and to take advantage of what they bring to the table. And I know it's always what's the D word, but it is so important. And like you said, it's not just gender and race. There are so many different shades of diversity that you need to really think about, and everybody makes a team better because they bring their own new unique perspective, their
Yes.
unique being to it, and we need to be more accepting and appreciative of that. And I yeah, so I could talk about diversity and inclusion all day, so
Selu, we've talked about soft skills, we've talked about team building, we've talked about your superpower, diversity. What are your thoughts about AI? Technology is reshaping the workplace
Mhm,
in a variety of ways.
mhm.
Looking ahead, how do you think the integration of AI and automation might impact um, tech roles, or will it?
I think it will impact tech roles, but I think it can only make things better. If you look at our human history and how technology has stepped in. We've had, of course, these peaks of, a lot of innovation, a lot of technology having a huge impact on our society. But at the time it was feared, but in the long run, if we look behind, it's like, oh, it was great that that happened because look at where our society is today. So I think, AI is still so new. We just don't
Mhm.
know everything that it can do and how it will impact everything going forward. But there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of possibilities. So I feel like the future is great.
Yeah.
But I also agree that we should be making sure that everybody is a part of that technology movement, right? And
Mm.
once again, getting back to the D word, but that plays an important role in how AI will help shape the future. So um, yeah, so that's my thought. But I think there's many good things ahead. Of course, there will be a few gotchas and things along the way. It's like, oh, AI did this, and we should have known better. But that's true with every technology.
Absolutely.
So I think we're just so early and everybody's like jumping in, the whole world is jumping in, and we don't even know what we're capable of yet. So I'm actually very curious to see and once again optimistic.
I heard someone say I attended academic and AI conference for professors, and I heard someone say we think that we find AI so exciting right now and it's amazing, but it's really the base bargain basement version because we're just tapping the surface of it.
Mhm,
And that, 5, 10 years from now, it's going to be doing some amazing and powerful things.
mhm,
And in that conference, someone said, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be like prompt engineers, jobs for prompt engineers coming up. Well, what
mhm.
do I see in Udemy?
Mhm.
What do I see in Udemy about a month ago? Prompt engineering certification.
No way. Oh,
So, yes, prompt engineering certifications, prompt
mhm.
engineering courses. So
Wow.
it's only going to get better. And
Mhm,
what we all should be a part of the technology movement. I
mhm.
think this is where people can tap in. They can really
Oh yeah.
tap into
Mhm.
this and learn as much as you can. That time is over for being afraid of technology. You
Yeah.
can't break it.
Mm-mm.
It's here to stay and it's only evolving and getting better
Yes.
every day. So,
Absolutely.
what are you reading that we
Mhm.
should be reading?
So well, if you talk about uh it's not a leadership book, but the book that I literally just finished yesterday was Between Two Kingdoms, by Suleika Jawad. And I'm just getting to this book. I know it was released a long time ago, but it's about the author's journey through dealing with cancer and life after that. And
Mm.
the reason I'm reading that is, well, so 2 years ago, I myself was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm a survivor now. So no hard feelings there. But yeah, it is a journey, right? And in so many ways, if we try to tie this back to leadership, the
Mm.
book talks about, survival and getting through the hard times and dealing with challenging situations and dealing with people when you're not at your best, right? Or
Mm.
you're just not able to be your best, even as, as much as you want to. And how do you make it all work? And then after you come out of it, what happens to those relationships, and how do you move forward? And I mean, there's like dotted lines everywhere to leadership on that. And so the author did an amazing job. She's a writer by training, and she had a New York Times column and everything. So it was just a very insightful book from that perspective. It was a personal healing book, which I think leaders need to do. Is just not take themselves too seriously and go, it's okay. I am going through this experience. I don't know all the answers. I need to figure out what I'm doing. And I think that was one of the things that I took away from this book is that, as I'm okay with being vulnerable, but I realize that I do kind of put up some barriers to myself. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. I just need to be more honest with myself of what I'm what I'm doing and what I'm experiencing, because that only helps you become a better leader in the long run. So it was just conversations with yourself. It was just such an interesting read, and then of course, I mean, it's not all daisies and roses and leadership, those slogans in that book. It's a tough read. I'm not going to deny that, because there's a lot of stuff. But just opening yourself up to who you are is such an important part of the soft skills, the leadership, and you never know who might be able to do that. And this book has kind of taken me to the next level from that perspective, just, seeing who I am, and what I'm capable of doing, and honoring your past. I think,
Yeah.
it's okay if you were a certain way. And that, I think, is another reason why I related to this book is, I know you disagree with my introvert past, but no, truly, I was a very introverted child. My parents had to poke me to like say stuff sometimes, because like, you're so quiet, and I could be happy sitting in a room with a book for days. And I mean, I'm like, I was the epitome of introvertedness, but that transition, that was who I was. But
Yeah.
I found that there's something else inside me, and this is what I am now. But I can't despise or hate the person that I was then. That is who I was, and part of those experiences have shaped me into who I am today. So just kind of accepting your past was another sort of theme in the book. Accepting the past, but realizing that it is helping shape your future. And there's so many like things tied up there. We don't have enough time for that, but anyway,
Between
that's
two kingdoms, between
yeah.
two kingdoms,
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab that because I as you were explaining why you were reading it and then the parallels,
Mhm.
it sounds like it humanizes a leader,
Mhm.
allowing leaders to tap into their humanity. And when you
Mhm.
can tap into your own humanity, it's easier to tap into the humanity of the people you work with. And
Yes.
so thank you for sharing that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've been chatting with Selu Gupta, engineering manager at Tektronix. Visit the show notes to see how to connect with Selu. And while you're in the show notes, be sure to grab a copy of Results Driven Organizations, the 4 Keys to a High Performance Workplace, and grab our 2024 Leaders Reading List as our special gift to you for being a valuable listener. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Results Driven Organizations Podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Be sure to review the show notes for the resources mentioned, and don't forget to grab your free gift available at freegiftfromtanya.com. Until next time.